All right. How you doing, folks? Ron Raymond here from the Raymond Report with a I was going to say a special edition today, but the day before Thanksgiving. I know a lot of people are getting ready for the weekend. I'm always joined here by my good friend and co-host, Ross Benjamin of rbwins.com. Good morning, Ross.
Good morning, Raven, to all of you out there that are viewing, and we appreciate your participation. We appreciate your support, and here's wishing from me and Rod, you a happy Thanksgiving, because we won't be on the air tomorrow.
That's right. Happy Thanksgiving to all our American friends and to you, Ross, and your family. And
thank you, Ron.
We'll, hey, you know what? It's the year we've had is really challenging for a lot of people. And, this is where, we're thankful for a lot of stuff in life, our families and friends, and in some respect, sports to really, to give us a bit of a diversion of the ups and downs of life, right?
Yeah, especially this year, correct? You know what I mean? 2020 has been a rough year for everybody, and because of this COVID-19 crisis, hopefully it gets resolved sooner rather than later. Some encouraging signs, but in any event, when you are restricted and you don't have the freedoms you once had a year ago at this time, sports is a nice escape. And I know for one, it's certainly, I don't know what I would do with all these restrictions right now here in the States, especially New York State, what I would do if I didn't have my livelihood to lean on, and then the ability to watch sports in the evening as well.
No, absolutely. And horse racing, like I'll always go back to horse racing at the beginning when, that was the only sport in town. And, but you know what, we do have some, we're going to, as you say, accelerate our college football edition by one day today. We're going to talk about the 3 NFL games on Thanksgiving Day. We're going to talk about also those 2 college football games and a slate of Friday college football games. So it's almost like a false, what's that word I'm looking for? A full Friday type thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's yeah. So no, looking forward to that, Ross. And again, folks, I'd like to thank everybody who joins us each and every day here on the YouTube channel. And don't forget, if you do have something in mind you want to discuss with me and Ross, just throw it up there in the chat box. And we always look at it periodically. And if we see something, we'll bring it to our attention, and we'll hopefully have something to say. So, all right, Ross, I'm going to do a screen share right here. Let's go. Speaking of horse racing, do you see the Tampa Bay Downs free horse racing?
I do.
Wow, what a great lead in right into the horse racing, right? I didn't see that coming gate to wire. Today's the first day, in fact, Ross, Tampa Bay Downs. I love Tampa Bay Downs for some reason. When we started going to Florida, it was the first track that we went to, and it's a little track. It's not like Gulfstream, not even close, but it's a quaint little track. And it's, remember the movie Easy Money or Rodney Dangerfield? Yeah. Yes. I don't know, for some reason, that comes to mind every time I go there. But if people are interested in horse racing, we have a free tip sheet here at the website. Go to horses, go to free tip sheet. And today's free tip sheet is Tampa Bay Downs for November 25th. All right, let's kick it off here, Ross, on the Thanksgiving Day special for tomorrow. We're going to go to that Houston-Detroit game. Now, the one thing with these 3 games on Thanksgiving, it's like any other Thursday game, right? You got to wait for the injury report. And man, Detroit's a real quagmire. We just don't know who's going to be in that lineup tomorrow. Now you're hearing Stafford might not play. Galladay is a question mark. The DeAndre Swift, like, man, you're almost and with a COVID situation, you almost got to wait until game time to lay your bet.
Yeah, it's hard to, I did put my picks up yesterday, but in light of looking at all the variables, I got a total on this game at ATSStats.com right now. The winning total in the Houston-Detroit game. Got a real good angle on this game, Ron. A 28-1 NFL totals betting angle on this contest. And so, yeah, I mean, we're living in a different day and age. I mean, the days of you put a pick up 2 days ahead of time like I did, and you got to hold your breath kind of thing, So, again, we'll see what happens.
I know what that feels like with that Cleveland pick on the weekend.
Yeah.
Didn't see that monsoon coming. But that's 3 weeks in a row that Cleveland, had 3 bad weather. Was it 3 home games in a row they had? They had,
yes.
Or is it 2 or 3? I know they had the Raiders.
They had 3. They had they opened with the Raiders, and then they had the bad weather game against Houston.
Yeah.
And then last week, another bad weather game. So.
Yeah. The football gods are smiling on the Browns this week, and they're sending them to Florida. Hey, go enjoy some sun for those last 3 weeks. You've been in bad weather the last couple of weeks. Now, looking at this game here, Ross, I'm going to take a quick look at the latest line. I got -3 on my chart, and I got the over/under set at 51.5. And we had some good numbers yesterday on totals of 51.5. I think the over was like something like 14-5-0. Whenever that total was 14.5 on the season. Let me see, 51.5. Yeah, 20. Actually, no, it wasn't. Let me see. Oh, I'll get that. It's college football. So -3, 51.5. A low scoring game here from the computer, 12-10. You look at the Texans' last couple of games. They're coming off a nice win over New England, 27-20, where the Lions losing 20-0 to PJ Walker and the Carolina Panthers. To me, it just that alone tells me what kind of mess Detroit is in right now.
Yeah, hard to believe that it's not like Carolina's a dominant defensive team either. If you look at the statistical ratings, one thing to keep in mind: Detroit's been a nice overplay at home this year. Let's see, 2-0, 3-0, 4-0 over at home, I believe, if I'm looking at the right stats. So Houston has gone under the total in their last 2 games. However, they started the season by going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 5, 6, 1-1 over the total in their first 8. So again, some variables to look at if you're worried about the status of some of the players in this matchup. You might want to lean toward looking at the total. You might find a safer and better value. I believe I have. We'll see what transpires, though, Ron. Again, you mentioned some of the guys that are questionable for Detroit, and also Randall Cobb, one of Houston's top receivers, is also out in this game. So there's question marks on both sides in terms of availability.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking at Detroit's lineup for tomorrow, you got Stafford questionable, Swift questionable, Galladay questionable, Amendola, Hall. Man, it just it doesn't stop. Like it's just it's one of those games where it's okay. Like you said, maybe you lean towards the total, or you go with the healthier team and the Texans, right? Looking at Houston's last few games, 27-20 against the Patriots, 10-7 against a very good Cleveland Browns team. 27-25 win over Jacksonville. A Jacksonville team since the Green Bay game starting to play some respectable football, right?
Now last week they were horrible against Pittsburgh last week, but Pittsburgh makes a lot of teams look horrible.
Yeah, exactly. 35-20 against the Packers they lost. So not a great season for the Texans, who are 3-7 on the year. Detroit 4-6. If you were asking me the top of my head real quickly, who has the better record? I don't know if I would have came up with Detroit right off the top of my head, but Detroit is just like last year, a quick start out of the gate, and then just the wheels start falling off. It's
they've
really
lost
bad.
3 of their last 4, and it's real interesting when you get to this point of the year when you have a road favorite that has a worse record than the home underdog. So that tells you something right there in itself. Think like a bookmaker. It's not that easy. There's a reason why they've posted Houston as a favorite. That's not to imply you should take the Texans. That's not what I'm implying. But if you think you're getting a great value, Detroit, too, not very good on Thanksgiving Day, Ron. I went back and looked at their last 17 results on Thanksgiving Day, 4-13 straight up on Thanksgiving Day at home. And also, if they're a home underdog they're futile as far as covering. The statistics, I can't remember them off the top of my head, but there's a home underdog parameter with Detroit on Thanksgiving Day that's somewhere around 0-8 against the spread. So they haven't exactly been traditionally a good play as a home underdog on Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah, and then look at Houston here on a Thursday games since '83, or since whenever they came in the league, 1-6 against the spread. And look at this record here, Ross. Houston Texans coming off a home win as an underdog, 1-10-1 in their next game, and they're playing on 3 days rest. That's one thing that we don't talk enough about. 3 days rest, man.
Yeah.
I don't know how you can do that. Like having just seeing a lot of CFL games and coaching in university. I don't know how these guys can really, and then you're asking them to practice, on a Monday and Tuesday after a big game. It makes
don't
no
have
sense.
time. Yeah, it doesn't give your body any time to heal, right, Ron? You usually like to have the kids or guys have a day or two to let their body heal and recuperate and do sauna work, whatever you want to do. And then you add in the factor you have to travel on 3 days rest, Ron.
Yeah, it makes no sense to me why we play Thursday games. Absolutely none. Unless there's a bye week. Like if you're going to play a Thursday night game, there has to be a 10-day break between, somehow. You can't ask big men in the NFL and big bodies that it's a collision sport to play on 3 days rest. I think it's just ridiculous myself. I think
I agree. And it's all about money, right, Ron? It's like you said before. I mean, these types of decisions, regardless of what the NFL office wants to say, are not in the best interest of players. It's in the best interest of their pocketbooks. And Thursday night, as long as they keep getting good ratings, and they keep getting advertised as a shell out millions of dollars, they're not going to do away with it. I'd rather see them go to a Friday night or a Saturday night game even. And I know they don't want to go head to head with college football. Well, they don't want to do that to college football. Friday night, give them another day at least. You know what I'm saying? Friday night football, that would take on a whole new thing, but who knows, Ron? Again, as long as they're making money, I don't see them changing from this Thursday night concept.
Well, here in Canada, the CFL, they have Friday night football. It's Wendy's Friday night football. It's their biggest viewing audience.
Yeah,
It really works on a Friday night in Canada, but the U.S. The one thing with U.S. football and having gone to conference and knowing high school coaches, we all know that since sliced bread, football Friday's high school football, Saturday's college, the NFL is Sunday, right? But we're getting at a time of year though, Ross, where teams are going to start playing on Saturday. Yeah. And you're going to start seeing a couple of games start at 4:30 on a Saturday, and then that nightcap game. That I like. Those makes for a fun weekend, right?
Absolutely. But matter of fact, our Buffalo Bills, I believe it's December 19th, will be going to Denver on a Saturday and playing at 4:30. So, at that point, ordinarily, I should say, the college football regular season is done and you're into those minor bowls. So the NFL's not affecting college football. This is an exception to the rule this year because of the COVID-19. You're going to still see some regular season games on the 19th of December, as well as conference championships. So not much you could do in that regard. But yeah, I agree, Ron. Your point is well taken. Like I said, the NFL, they could say whatever they want. The player's best interest at heart is not worth their thinking when they do these Thursday night games.
Yeah. One thing the NBA does very well, and I'll give Adam Silver a lot of credit, he listens to the players.
Yep.
Like it seems the relationship between ownership and the NBA, it's not a one-way street. There seems to be some give and take in that relationship. And to me, I think it's the best one of all the four major sports. I think the NBA Players Association and the owners of the NBA are on the same page. And, we saw it last year, right? With the civil unrest and how the NBA stepped up and listened to their players. And I just, in hockey's, NBA's come out with a date, December 22nd, and hockey's still like, picking at straws here going, okay, well, what's going on? The players are unhappy with the split, but yeah. Anyways, I'm starting to Ross Benjamin.
No,
10.
it's okay. And the owners are a problem yeah, exactly. And the owners are a problem in the NHL too, because you got a portion of the owners that don't want to have a season at all because they're anticipating no fan attendance or even 20% fan attendance in certain arenas. So they don't want to take a bath financially. So you're 6 of one, half dozen the other. I think the NFL, though, they err on the side of arrogance more than any other major sports in terms of their front office.
Yeah. And it's so easy for us to spend other people's money, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I agree. I agree. That's
All
where
right.
we lose, business 101. Sometimes we lose concept of that because we love sports so much.
Absolutely. Let's get back to the Turkey Bowl here. We got -3. We got the Dallas Cowboys taking on the Washington football team. Now going into this game, Dallas, you know what, looked really good last Sunday night or Sunday afternoon against the Minnesota Vikings. Washington, beat the Bengals, a game where we saw Burrows get knocked out and that horrible leg injury. Now going to this one, this is a very interesting matchup. You got a Washington football team's identity with their defense, taking a Dallas Cowboys team, which is totally the opposite. They're when Dak and Zeke is running, well, when Dak was there, the offense would, I think in the first 4 weeks, they were like ranked number 1 or 2 in the offense, weren't they?
Yeah, until Dak Prescott got hurt. Correct.
Exactly. So, going into this game, the computer likes the Cowboys 25-22, right on the number, over under at 47.8. Looking at the Cowboys' last 5 games, they're 1-4 straight up, but they are, let me see here, 3-7 on the season. Washington 2-3, and they are also 3-7 on the season. And looking at their away record, 0-4 away from home, where the Dallas Cowboys are 2-3, but only 1-4 against the number. Looking at this game, Ross, I've been crunching a bit of the numbers there this last 24 hours. I'm leaning a bit to the under in this game, and maybe you can convince me otherwise, or maybe you got something else you're thinking about.
Well, I'll have the winning side on this game that's up right now at atsstats.com, a 5-star selection, ATS winning side. In terms of the total, I tend to agree with you because you look at Washington's defense is extremely, extremely underrated. You look at their defensive numbers, and I believe they're right up there in scoring defense, total defense, and I think they have 33 sacks thus far at this point of the season. So it goes under the radar, Ron, because they're a 3-7 team that struggles offensively for the most part. One thing I think where Washington will try to attack Dallas, as a matter of fact, I know they will, they have an emerging running game with a underrated running back in Antonio Gibson out of Memphis, who's really been productive this year. And the Dallas Cowboys are allowing around 154 yards per game rushing. So look for Washington to expose that. On the other hand, Dallas is going to be playing with big-time revenge because they were embarrassed in their first meeting of the season at Washington on October 25th, where they lost 25-3, and they had a grand total of 142 yards of total offense. So, again, keep that in mind. And I believe that was Andy Dalton. Did he get hurt in that game, if I'm not mistaken? He may have. If not, I really like the way Dallas looked last week with Andy Dalton. I think that he's like we just talked yesterday, a very viable backup quarterback that could make great use of the extremely talented offensive skill position players that Dallas has, Ron.
Yeah. You know what? I have a nice system on Dallas here. When any NFL home favorite the last 5 years playing in November, coming off a road win like they did last week in Minnesota, and they're coming off 2 ATS wins. So they're coming off an ATS win against the Steelers and an ATS win against Viking. The home team, Ross, is 17-3 straight up, but 12-5-3 against the numbers. So, we're always attracted, the public's attracted to offensive teams, right? The ones who go to the end zone and starts dancing, and we might get a Salvation Army of the pot dance this year, right? They always have that pot in the end zone in Dallas. So we might get a few dances out of that. Probably, I bet you there's a few props out there. How many people will jump in that sometimes at the Salvation Army? But you know what? If I was to play a side here, I'd probably lean with the Dallas Cowboys. A couple of reasons. Ever since that game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, they got embarrassed against, like you said, the Washington football team 25-3. Now, this game against the Eagles was competitive until maybe the middle of the third quarter.
Yeah.
So let's be honest. The Cowboys, the last 3 games have been competitive. They, even though they're 1-2 in those games, hey, that Steeler game, Pittsburgh didn't take them seriously enough as a 14-point home road favorite. It closed at 14. You might have a different number. But, I think Dallas might be worth a look here. The only thing that's, you got Riverboat Ron there on the other side. He likes to gamble. And, those fourth downs. I was watching that game.
So do you, Ron.
Great name, by the way, Ron.
Riverboat Ron. Yeah,
Riverboat
there you
Ron,
go.
Maybe when he retires, I'll hire him here at ATS Stats. I wonder if he would come. Hey, looking at this game, Ross, the one thing with Washington is you never know with this team. Like you look at their games, 20-9, 30-27, 23-20, 25. Like they're in almost every game.
Yeah, their defense is going to keep them in most games, Ron. That defense is very good for Washington.
Yeah, it is a good defense, and Ron Rivera's defensive guy, right?
Yeah.
So the chance of this game going over the total, the Kogo's at 61%. Yeah, again, I'd probably lean towards the under in this game. Alex Smith, what can you say about this guy? The comeback player of the year by far. Not even he good on him, right? It's a great story where, man.
It is a great story, Ron. If you saw that injury, you would never thought in a million years he'd be able to return. He almost died. You know what I mean? That's how serious it was.
Yeah, the infection in the leg and here he is, like going into Thanksgiving Day weekend, starting quarterback for the Washington football team. So, some good numbers here. We'll give some good stats. The computer again has it really tight. But if
Ron, I gotta bet before you move on to the next game. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
that's okay.
I came to mind because you were talking about money line plays in the NFL yesterday, and any NFL favorite against the money line after one or more consecutive wins, which Dallas has. I mean, they're coming off that win against the Vikings last week, and they're a bad team with the win percentage of 250 to 400 on the year, which Dallas falls in that category at 3-7, which is a 300 win percentage. They've gone 39-7 straight up since 2016. That's 84.8%. And, again, if you're not going to bet the money line, keep this in mind. You only have to cover a line of -3. So the only way you're going to win and not cover if it falls on 1 or 2, which is not impossible, but highly improbable in most instances. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah. 39-7, you said?
Yes. 30, any money line favored off a win.
Yep.
And they have a win percentage of between 250 and 400, 39-7 straight up since 2016. So again, Dallas off a win, Dallas with the 3-7 record, which is a 300 win percentage, 39-7 straight up since 2016. As a matter of fact, I could delve into that even deeper, and I could tell you that the average margin of victory, actually in those 46 games, the money line favorite average outscoring the opposition by 7.8 points per game. The average money line in those games was 144.3. This one is 150. So a lot of things fit in that regards.
Yeah, it's like getting a second player, a second man rotation in the baseball. On the second man in the rotation type number, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I thought we had a really good conversation yesterday with talking about the types of bettings, and we talked about money line betting. We talked parlays. I really thought about that. It really made me think a lot yesterday. It all depends on your tolerance and who says that in order to make money you have to bet a certain way. Like there's certain ways where and times a year where You want to bet the point spread? Okay, there's a certain risk level betting the point spread. You want to bet the money line? There's a certain risk level, and it's a lot of about doing comfort level. But at the end of the day, we're all trying to get that, make money, and
Yeah.
that's the reason why you're doing this. And if you do it through point spread betting, or if you do it through money line, the thing with money line betting, it might take you longer to get to your goal. And if you do it through point spread, there's a higher risk. So it's all about risk level and money management. And man, I know we keep talking about doing a show on money management, but we really need to address that one day, because the more I think about it, I think it would be a great show, and get the people involved to see what they think too on how. I always like to hear how other professional gamblers or even bettors, what they do with their money management, because in the league, in sports betting today, when you hear handicappers saying that they're struggling, that and even professional gamblers, like I listened to some shows, and some gamblers like, man, I got taken to the woodshed yesterday. Back in the day, nobody even talked about their losses. Maybe, who knows, right?
It's a more transparent industry now, because there's more checks and balances with the internet, where you didn't have that 20 years ago, 25 years ago. Ron, one other point, okay?
Yep.
It's -3 is a key number, right? So a lot of people, including myself, are always a proponent of buying off a key number. Myself, I buy off the hook. I would leave 3 alone because I could live with a push and not a loss by a half a point. But the bottom line is this. If you were indeed to say, okay, I'm going to buy off a 3, it's probably going to cost you $1.35 to do so.
Yep.
To win 100 or to win $1. So why not spend the extra 10 or 15 cents more and just take them on the money line, is my point. So now you're protecting yourself against a 2-point or 1-point game. Again, I'm not a big money line player, but when it's really made me think, our conversation yesterday, and then in this discussion on this particular game, in that money line angle I just brought up, some people always buy off a 3, and to buy off a 3, to buy off a 7, as you well know, Ron, you pay more juice always when you buy off a number, but especially so, even more so on those key numbers. So
yeah, no, you know what? These are conversations 10 years ago we weren't having, because people, it's like, well, why would you bet money line? That's not a wise thing. Who does that, right? Yeah. But I'm hearing more and more professional guys do this, and it's just slow and steady wins the race. We keep talking about this. You want to hit that home run, but hit a single, and then again, it's not as sexy as you want it to be, like hitting +3 and all that. But let's be honest. Look at these games. Sometimes I watch a game and I'm like, I just spent 57 minutes in sweating a game when I'm still going to sweat the last 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And then NBA is even worse. The 2-minute NBA final could last you like a half hour. But yeah, no, you're right. Absolutely right. I think there's more people looking at betting like 2-3 team money line parlays. To me, I equate that to the same as betting a 1-team point spread. A single game point spread. That's just me.
Yeah. I would differ slightly. Let's put it that way. But you have won me over on these money line parlays. I would never advocate parlays on a point spread. That's something that if you're going to do that on a consistent basis, even once in a while, you're going to cost yourself money. I don't care how many you hit in a row, you'll eventually end up in the red. But the money line theories that Ron said yesterday in terms of parlays go, look, here's the thing, Ron, we wouldn't hesitate during baseball season to lay -130 or -140, right? Why would you in the NFL? So
yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying, right? If I get Charlie Morton at -150, hey, I'm jumping on that, and he'll be doing it with a Braves uniform now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the. This was looking like to be a great Sunday night game. It still could be, right? It's just another Thursday, another uncertain, just like a bit like the Detroit game. Baltimore now, there's news coming out. There's more players that might have COVID. That line went from 1 to 4.5. It's still, to me, it's one of the best rivalry games in football. Steelers Ravens, and it just happened, about maybe 15, 20 years ago when Ray Lewis and Ed Reed were in Baltimore. Because hey, to me, I think you watch these games and they're so physical. These are such physical games. And looking at this game on Thursday night, Ross, we got 4.5, and the over/under is at 44.5. And we got Pittsburgh winning here 23.5 to 20.6, the over/under at 44.17. Now, Pittsburgh, we know, are on a great run, 10-0 on the season. Baltimore, 6-4, and really struggling of late. If you look at their last couple of games, 23-17 loss in a monsoon night. Man, I'm saying that a lot lately. A lot of monsoon games. 23-17. 30-24 last week against the Titans. That was a game where bend don't break, and the running game eventually just took over in the fourth quarter. Football is a 4-quarter sport, and a team that runs the football well, like Tennessee, eventually those D linemen are going to wear down. Those linebackers are not going to hit the hole as quick, and then it's exactly what happened in this game to the Tennessee Titans against Baltimore last Sunday.
Yeah. What concerns me with Baltimore right now, on top of everything else regarding Lamar Jackson that I brought up several times, is defensively, Ron. You mentioned Tennessee, how they got their running game in gear during that win at Baltimore last week, and 173 yards rushing for Tennessee last week. The week before, they allowed 173 against New England. Now, everybody has bad games stopping the run, but I'm even more concerned with that performance at New England, because that was in a torrential downpour with high winds, where you knew New England was going to run the ball. If you look at that game, New England ran the ball 39 times and only attempted 18 passes. That's a 2-to-1 ratio. Yet they couldn't stop the run, and they were giving up better than 4 yards a carry. So that's starting to be a concern of mine. And then, Baltimore's passing game, I've gone over this time and time again. You're looking at right now, they're 6-4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of their 10 games, Ron, they've thrown for less than 200 yards. So, wow. I mean, in the NFL, eventually you're going to fall behind in games, and you're going to need a comeback late. And as we know, you don't mount comebacks by being run heavy. You have to, at some point, need to lean on your quarterback in your passing game. And that's a big concern for Baltimore. Now, on the other side of the coin, as I mentioned off air to you, the Ravens are surprisingly 2-3 at home, but they're 4-1 on the road. And if you go back to last year, they're an extremely good road team. They're right now, I believe, since the beginning of last year, they've gone 11-2 on the road. So that's something to take into consideration. And that money in that point spread move, as Ron touched upon, that's where you really have to look at injury reports, because you very rarely see that big of a move from the opening line to where it is right now on the point spread, unless there's some factor like of player availability, key player availability. And, it's a lot of it has to do with player availability for Baltimore. The question marks revolving around the COVID-19 situation, in addition to there a little bit of money into play here, Ron, because people have witnessed how Baltimore has looked, losing 3 of the last 4 games as well.
Again, I think there's is there an overreaction here? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Well, we both know that happens, right? Because we always say that people have, novice bettors, regular bettors. Normally they have a short memory, Ron. You know what I mean? And they're remembering what they saw the last 2 weeks with Baltimore falling. They're seeing a 10-0 Pittsburgh team. So I'm sure that has something to do with it. You would think if the bookmakers were going to account for that, it would have been more glaring in the opening line, but that wasn't the case. So to make Pittsburgh, what were they on the opening line, Ron? I'm sorry.
-1.
-1 on the opening line. I mean, look at that opening line. You're talking about a 10-0 team against a 6-4 team, and they were only -1 on the opening line. So, again, some intrigue into reading into this game, Ron.
Yeah, I agree. I think, Mark Ingram and was it Dobbins?
Yes.
Those are that's a field goal move on 2 players.
Yeah.
And the one that we saw, that a lot of overreaction on the weekend. Some went against us, some went like, for instance, Kansas State against Iowa State. I think they're playing right this weekend.
Yes. Yes.
There was a lot of COVID news, and that went in Iowa State's favor. But then on the other side of the coin, there was an overreaction to that Pittsburgh and Virginia Tech when the news came out that a lot of COVID on the Pittsburgh team, and Pittsburgh just blew them out of the water.
Yeah, they went from Virginia Tech being a 3-point road favorite to a 6.5-point road favorite, if I'm not mistaken, Ron.
Exactly.
Is that correct? Yeah,
absolutely right. And this is what I'm saying. Like, that's a good example of an overreaction at the college level. But at the pro level, these are professional football players. And, like you said before on air, off air, Gus Edwards, he's
not bad.
Yeah, he's a National Football League running back, and you got Justice Hill as his backup. You still got my big thing this weekend when they played on the weekend. Who did the Baltimore just played there? They played Tennessee. Calais Campbell. I think he's a big part of that defensive line. We need to know if he's going to be showing up this weekend, right? Oh yeah.
The dog pound, baby. The dog pound.
It wouldn't be a show if Rusty. It wouldn't be a show if Rusty
chime in.
Yeah. That's what happens when you get a delivery guy coming out your door, knocking on the door.
That's a personal alarm system. Why pay an alarm company when you got Rusty?
Yeah.
Hey, Ron, I wanted to bring up, I talked to you off air about this. I got to bring this to the the listener and viewers' attention. I mean, Pittsburgh won at Baltimore back on November 1st. They won 28-24. They were a 4-point underdog in that game. But I like to read inside the numbers and say, okay, how did they win that game? Well, you look at the fact that Baltimore in that game, despite the loss, had outgained Pittsburgh badly. As a matter of fact, they had 457 total yards on offense to Pittsburgh's 221. So they outgained them by like 236 yards, but they were -3 in the turnover differential. So again, and then you see the opening line. I mean, that opening line with Pittsburgh at -1 as a 10-0 team against a 6-4 opponent tells me everything I need to know, if not for the fact that this COVID-19 situation came up. That opening line, Ron, was based on both teams not dealing with the COVID issue. And when that news came out, that was the adjustment that was made. And a little bit of money has something to do with it as well.
Yeah. I'll be honest, Ross. I'm leaning towards Baltimore. And look at Pittsburgh's last 3 games against teams that don't have a winning record: Dallas, Cincinnati, Jacksonville. And they didn't really look good against the Cowboys. Cincinnati at home, they did well, but and then Jacksonville, right?
Yeah.
Okay, they won those games, but the strength of schedule really, 22%. Compared to 66% for the Ravens. And Ravens 4-1 on the road this season. This year the home and road thing I don't think is a real big. The only thing that's an issue is the travel, and you're displacing your logistics and your timetables.
Yes.
You're sleeping in hotels, but on game day, I don't see a big difference because like Belichick, the week 1, when he said, how did it feel out there playing? He goes, it felt like practice,
Yeah, exactly.
Typical Belichick.
Exactly. Dry sense of humor, short and to the point.
Yeah,
and also something to keep in mind too, Ron, in that first matchup, Baltimore ran for 265 yards against a very good Pittsburgh defense. So Look for them to lean heavily on the run game. And again, I wouldn't put too much stock. Mark Ingram, with no disrespect, had a tremendous year last year, but he's been unavailable a lot this year.
Absolutely.
And they really used J.K. Dobbins as their top guy. But Gus Edwards has proven, when given the opportunity, he could assume a heavy workload. So again, don't get too caught up with Baltimore having their two top running backs out. Of course, they would like to have them available, right? But from a handicapping perspective, that's where I'm going with my reasoning.
Yeah, I wish the Ragu was online with us because he's a fantasy guy. I would love to see Mark Ingram's fantasy numbers, like his value last year to this year.
Yeah. Oh,
see,
yeah.
To see what kind of a drop off there's been in that.
And, and last year too, Ron, even though he didn't get, he wasn't your workhorse type running back like a lot of guys are. He was always in when Baltimore was first and goal inside the 5. And they cashed in many times with him, resulting in running for a touchdown. So, sometimes, again, I don't want to get into fantasy stuff. I'll leave that to my Paisan buddy.
Paisan buddy. Yeah. But you remember, I know Ingram was in New Orleans. They had thunder and lightning. I always say in sports, Batman need Robin. And right now, like Batman in Baltimore struggling right now. Lamar. But hey, you know what? I think Baltimore's the play. If that's sort of like all the road teams on Thanksgiving Day. But hey, all right, Ross. That's the NFL show. Let's talk about. There's 2 college football games on Thanksgiving Day Thursday. You got Colorado State against Air Force. Now Air Force a 5.5 point home favorite. The over/under set at 54.5. Forecast going to leave with the Falcons here 29-25. The over/under at 55.4. In the Raymond Report, we had the Air Force listed at minus 1.5 on the value index. We had Colorado State plus 8. No team really getting value here. And the chances of covering the spread does favor the Colorado State Rams here, 67%, and a 52% chance of this game going over the total. You're the college football guy. What do you think of this one?
Well, here's the thing. Air Force is a really tough team for me to gauge, Ron. They've held 3 of their 4 opponents to 17 points or less. Then they lose at home to Boise State 49-30. I guess that's no embarrassment there. Colorado State looked like they turned the corner after an embarrassing loss at Fresno in their opener. They defeat a pretty good Wyoming team at home 34-24. And then in the prior game 2 weeks ago, they lose 52-21 at Boise State. Here's what it comes down to for me. I look at Air Force's defense, which was supposed to be a big weakness because they had several players on the defensive side of the ball opt out because of COVID-19 before the season began. But lo and behold, it's their strength right now. And also their strength, as it always is their triple option rushing attack that is usually, if not always, in at least the top 5 in college football in rush yards per game. This year being no different. They're averaging 403 yards rushing per contest. That's enormous. However, if Colorado State does anything good on defense, is they stop the run. They're allowing just 106 yards per game rushing and just 2.5 yards per rushing attempt. And when I decipher this line and I see it open at 7 and come down to 5.5 and 5, I'm not sure where it is exactly at this moment. I'm seeing some reverse line movement there too, where most of the action is coming in on Air Force, yet the line dropped from 7 to 5. And most times not, if sharp money's not involved, it would constitute the line going up, not coming down. So I'm noticing a little bit of sharp money going the way to Colorado State Rams here. Mm-hmm. But this isn't the game I'm going to be using, Ron.
Okay. Do you know if Air Force is a lot like Army and Navy? Like, are they, Army's run? Like, is Air Force more like 60-40 run, or, do they pass a bit more?
Well, you're looking at, if you look at their season statistics, Ron, so far, which is all of 4 games, they average 58 running plays and 10 passing attempts per game.
Okay.
So does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. No,
yeah, that's like 6 out of 7, which means they, again, because I'm pretty good at deciphering numbers pretty quickly. That's about 86% run to pass differential.
The reason I say that is because anytime you get ahead on these triple option type teams, like we saw like Tulane against Army 2 weeks ago, once you're up 2 touchdowns on these type teams, man, it's your possibility of winning, it just increases tenfold. Like their comeback ability, unless they break one for 80 yards on the run, because if you're just run dominant, then you're like 5 yards at a time, 7 yards at a time, but that eats the clock. We're one long pass, boom, 10 seconds, all right, kickoff. It's just methodical, like run, but then the time starts.
Well, here's the thing too, with all 3 service academies, they very seldom abandon their running game too early because, quite frankly, they don't have much, if any, passing game whatsoever. When they recruit quarterbacks coming out of high school, they're looking for dual threats, but most good passers aren't going to commit to the Naval Academy, Army, or the Air Force Academy. So I would really take a hard look at the under here, really, because Air Force's defense has been pretty formidable all season long, 3 to 4 games anyway. And then I look at a betting angle I have written down here that anytime you have a team like Colorado State that allowed 50 points or more in their last game, they allowed 52 to Boise State, and they're playing an opponent in which they had a combined total of 29 points or less scored in their previous game, which Air Force did. I believe it was a 17-6 win in their last, 28-0. Those games have gone 37-12 to the under since 2011. Wow. So, I mean, if you were to be contemplating playing this game, I would really look toward the under here. I mean, in those 49 results I just mentioned, 37-12 to the under, the average total in those games, in those 49 games, was 53.7. Right now, the total in this game is 54.5. So it's not like there's a big disparity within that angle on the average total compared to the current total in this game.
Okay. And if you look at the last couple of games, 38-21, that one's a high one, 27-19. It's I have some numbers pointing to the under as well, but I also got a case for the over. So to me, it's a no play. New Mexico, Utah State. So one thing's for sure, somebody's going to be happy here at the end of this game. Yeah. That first win of the year. 2 0-4 teams going at it. Now the only problem is that Utah State 0-4 straight up and against the spread, where New Mexico 2-2 against the number, 2-2 to the over/under. Same thing with the Aggies. Looking at our line on this game, both the big lines here, 14.5, 26. New Mexico, we have the Lobos winning this one, 23-15, over/under landing on 39. You know what? At first glance, I thought the over might be worth a look here. Your thoughts?
My thoughts are, if you're that bored and you need to play on this game, go in your refrigerator and get some leftovers, stuffing, turkey, whatever the case may be, because this is a stinker bowl game of the year. It's a matter of taking the lesser of 2 evils in this game, Ron.
Yeah.
And I really would have a hard time pulling a trigger on Utah State. I mean, they haven't even been close this year. Like you alluded to, 0-4 straight up and against the spread. And the closest they came was in their last game against Fresno. They lost 35-16. I mean, they've lost by 19, 25, 31, and 29 points in their first 4 games. How you could back a team as a single-digit underdog, even with the 0-4 New Mexico team, I don't know. So, and at least New Mexico on a couple of occasions been very competitive. I mean, against Nevada, they lost 27-20. That's a Nevada team right now that's 5-0. And they also lost at Hawaii 39-13, 39-33, right? So
San Jose State's pretty good too.
Yeah, really good, really good. San Jose State's undefeated right now. So they've played, if you look at their schedule, well, Utah State played Boise and San Diego State too. So yeah, I would give a slight edge in the strength of schedule to New Mexico at this point. But It's close.
Yeah. New Mexico. So far this season, road favorites on 5 days rest. The over 8-3 for those who are just dying to know about that. Liberty playing Massachusetts. Okay, we'll give that we'll just do the computer. Yeah, give it a courtesy look. Okay,
I'll steal a phrase from my buddy Chip Chirimbus, who's part of our ATS team here, ATS Stats team. His famous quote when he gets to games like this, it goes, "Ross, I'll never bet on a team that I could play for right now," and I'm 71 years old. So
that's a good one. I like that one. That's funny. All right. Just for shirts and giggles, we got Liberty coming off their first loss last week to NC State. I believe it was NC State. Yeah, 15-14. 48-19 for those who are interested. Here's the game we want to talk about. Texas Longhorn taking on the Cyclones. Iowa State going to this one now. It says here -1.5. I'm just going to take a quick peek at the latest lines to make sure we're on the right page here. And what's the total here? The total is 56.5. And I don't want college basketball. I want football. There we go. Okay, let's get the spreads and totals. So looking at this game, Ross, let me see. Where is it again? Texas. Here it is. -1.5 and 56.5. So we do have the right line. Iowa State coming off a big win last week, 45-0, as a big favorite, obviously, with that COVID news coming out for the Kansas State Wildcats. And Texas, I don't think they played last week because of the COVID situation, right, for Kansas?
Yeah, Texas hasn't played since November 7th, Ron. So It'll be a 20-day layoff by the time they take the field on Friday.
Yeah. And, I don't know how I feel about that. I think, I look at North Texas last weekend. They were off like for a month and they got that W last week. And sometimes when, there's two ways of looking at this. If you're really banged up, those extra 2-3 weeks really help depending on the skill position or even your hoggies up front. Right.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a bowl game at this point, but 28-24, we have the Longhorns winning this one. I think this is going to be a great matchup.
This one has all the makings of going down to the wire. Look, Iowa State controls their own destiny. They're 6-1 in Big 12 action. Their only loss came at Oklahoma State, 24-21. Texas, the same common opponent, played at Oklahoma State on the road and defeated them in overtime, 41-34. If you want to draw any conclusions through common opponents, I'm not a big proponent of that, but sometimes people are. But Iowa State's defense, Ron, has really come on late in the season here. As a matter of fact, over their last 3 games, they're allowing just 17.7 points per game. And remember, we're talking about the Big 12 Conference and 251.7 yards per game. So, again, that's excellent defense with all things considered. So I think they'll have a distinct advantage in terms of who the better off defense is in this game. But again, 2 really good quarterbacks too. Sam Ehlinger, for the senior from Texas, and the junior Brock Purdy from Iowa State. Ehlinger is having a very good year for Texas, and the Longhorns are playing good as well, Ron. I mean, they've won 3 in a row now. Yep. So, albeit against Kansas, Baylor, and Kansas State. Baylor, Oklahoma State, and West Virginia. Having said that, Oklahoma State and West Virginia are pretty good teams. So, again, I worry about that 20-day layoff, Ron. And you're right. It could go either way. At this time of year, are you fresh? Are you going to be rusty and get off to a bad start that you can't overcome? So we'll see. This is an intriguing matchup.
Yeah, you know what? There's 2 teams in the Big 12 you don't want to play right now, Texas and Oklahoma. It seemed the last 3-4 weeks they finally figured their, sometimes it takes a while to figure it out. And Lincoln Riley's figured it out in Oklahoma. Now in Texas, Tom Herman has probably figured out. That was a big win against West Virginia. That West Virginia defense is one of the tops defense. I wouldn't say in the whole college football, but for sure in the Big 12. That's a very good defensive line over there.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry. The one thing with Iowa State is which Iowa State team is going to show up. the one that beat Oklahoma, the one that lost to UL Lafayette. And looking at some of their, they're winning the beatables. Kansas State, Baylor, Kansas. The only thing that's a head scratcher here is why did they allow 22 points against on Kansas, right?
Yeah, I think some of those were by the way touchdowns with second liners. Yeah.
Okay. So that's to me I think Texas to me is the play at home. Iowa State being a road favorite, that really scratches my head a bit. In fact, let me take a look at some of our stats from yesterday. I know we had some really good stats that we brought out as road favorites this season. Road favorites of pick them to -3. Only 13 and 20 against the number.
Yeah.
That's from a league point of view, right? From a bookmaker. So when you're handicapping the numbers, to me, Ross, I think Texas to me is the play here.
Yeah, you mentioned UL Lafayette, Ron. Let's not forget they're ranked number 23 in the country right now. Right. So they've only lost one game. So yeah, I mean that's a team they should beat out of the Sun Belt, but that was their season opener. And that was a game the UL Lafayette returned a punt for a touchdown. They returned an interception for a touchdown. So there's some variables in there. There's still no excuse. But since then, they've gone 6-1 in Big 12 play. So, yeah, I mean, and your only other loss was at Oklahoma State. So, again, I really like this Iowa State team, but I hate going against Sam Ehlinger. He's a dynamic quarterback. It's unfortunate that through his 4 years in Texas that they've never been able to put out a formidable defense to help him, because how many games has he lost as a starting quarterback at Texas where he's putting up 35, 38, 40 points and still losing the game, Ron? So that's my worry with Texas, their defense. It's still a worry. It's something that needs to be addressed. And they can't continue to win games like, for example, they lost to Oklahoma 53-45. They beat Texas Tech 63-56. You beat Oklahoma State 41-34. I mean, you lost the game by scoring 45 points. You barely got by in another one, scoring 63 points. And then at Oklahoma State, you put up 41, and you had to win the game in overtime. So see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, no, exactly. And then, as a home underdog, the last 5 years, Texas, oh, wow. You'll never believe this. 11-1-1 against the spread as a home underdog the last 5 years.
I believe it, because they have a strong home field and a fine tradition there. I'm looking at the line right now, Ron. I know you said 1.5. I'm looking at the live line feed I have, and I'm seeing Iowa State is the 1-point favorite at Bookmaker. I'm also seeing Texas is a 1-point favorite at 5 Dimes, and I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, another 5 sports books that have the game at a pick'em. So just to keep that in mind, it's not like your traditional underdog. You're going to have to win this game straight up to cover, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, I agree. And hey, like Greg Dempson, the pearls, baby, pearls, eh?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, let's take a look at another one here, Ross. Let's go to the Nebraska-Iowa game. Iowa's been playing some really good football the last couple of weeks. Looking at their line on this game, -13.5, over-under at 53.5. Forecast going with the Hawkeyes here, 46-11, over-under at 58. 3-2 now, the Hawkeyes on the season, I believe. Or let me see, you're at 3-2, 4-1 against the number. Where Nebraska, man, Scott Frost is really trying to get that ship straight here. They are 1-3 on the season. Not going as planned for the Cornhuskers, and we know that fan base, if they don't start winning, they get pretty vocal.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, it's a loyal fan base. It's a program with a rich college football tradition that hasn't lived up to that over the last 5 or 6 years. We thought Scott Frost would be the answer. He was a popular choice, being a former quarterback at Nebraska that won the Heisman Trophy as well. But it hasn't panned out that way, has it, Ron?
No, not at all.
He had all that success at Central Florida and hasn't translated to Nebraska for whatever reason. And, you thought Nebraska might have had things turned around after that 30-23 win against Penn State the week before. But then again, Penn State's 0-5 right now, Ron?
Yeah.
And then last week, as a 17-point home favorite, they get blown out against Illinois.
I know.
I'm talking Illinois.
Lovie Smith.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. Iowa, on the other hand, as you alluded to, they begin the season with 2 close losses against Purdue and Northwestern. And then their last 3 games, 49-7, 35-7, 41-21. And they've been dominant in winning those games. And they've been especially dominant on the defensive side of the ball. And they've done a great job in their turnover differential for the season. As a matter of fact, 5, 6, 7, 2, 5, 8, 10, 14. They're plus. While you got a team like Nebraska that's really hurting themselves in that department, is they are -5 in that department. So something to keep in mind when you're handicapping this game. Yet it looks too obvious to me, Ron. Well, why shouldn't Iowa blow this team out at home?
Yeah. There's a saying in coaching, when you got 2 quarterbacks, you don't have one.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's the main problem right now with the Nebraska Cornhuskers. They are flip-flopping every week, and it's, Martinez is the guy, but when you start taking out your quarterback and you hold off his helmet like they did against Northwestern, and then what you're doing is you're putting in the McCaffrey, the younger brothers, you got to make a call and live with that call, because now you're splitting your team in half. Because what happens, and I saw it at the Northwestern game, Martinez goes to the sideline, they take his helmet away, and then you got players walking by. What's up? What's up? And then he looks at the coach, and he's got the whisper. I call those the coach's whispers, right? And then you start separating the team. And just knowing, being on a football team and coaching all my life, those things are coach killers. And because now you've given the fan base a reason to have an excuse. He couldn't even pick his quarterback. What's going on? Well, how come we're 1-3? Tom Osborne never went 1-3. That's those are things that are going to happen.
In Scott Frost's defense, he didn't recruit Taylor Martinez. He inherited him.
Yeah.
And Taylor Martinez, to me, looks such a promising freshman quarterback. Really put up some decent numbers as a freshman, with all things considered. To me, he's regressed, Ron, as his career has gone on at Nebraska.
Yep.
And at this point, you're saying, okay, I got my guy that I recruited, and he's a freshman, and we're not going to win a Big Ten title this year. It's quite obvious. So do I play for the future, or do I have an allegiance toward the guy who's been here for a while? It's one of those calls as a coach that is very difficult, and it could backfire, as you just alluded to.
Well, look at their game against Northwestern, 21-20, and that was at Northwestern.
Yeah.
Purdue, at home to Northwestern, 21-20.
Yeah, that was Iowa though, Ron, wasn't it?
Iowa at Northwestern, I'm talking about. Yeah.
It was Iowa was at home to Northwestern and lost 21-20.
Yeah, sorry.
But at Northwestern, you're talking about, they lost 21-13 Nebraska. They were right in that game.
Yep. Good defense, Northwestern. But what I'm saying is that it's hard to understand. Like, you play a tough game against Northwestern, and then Penn State. You beat Penn State 30-23, but again, losing to Illinois, that's a head scratcher. Iowa's a good team.
They're a real good team, and the 3-2 record isn't indicative of how good they are. And again, Penn State, I'm going to go back to how I look inside the numbers here. That was pretty much fool's gold if you look at that win. First of all, Penn State's 0-5. They're not the Penn State they've been over the last couple decades. And in that game, despite winning 30-23, they were outgained in that game 501 to 298. So they were outgained in that game by 203 yards, Ron. It's not like they dominated that game, or it was, they were beneficiaries of some undisciplined play that Penn State has been plagued by all season long.
Yeah. When I look at this game here, Ross, I'm thinking, okay, Iowa's covered the spread in their last 4 games. The value is out the window. Like everybody and
Yeah.
their dog is going to be thinking about Iowa in this game. If I was to play this game, obviously I like Iowa, but I'm not going to lay minus 13.5 after they've covered 4 spread, because from, fundamentally from a handicapping point of view, the Raymond Report chance of covering is at 10%. That's because you got a team covering 4 against a team that, didn't cover in their last game. I think Nebraska, man, it's one of those uncomfortable picks. If you do, take this game, it's a big game, right? It's not on a normal Saturday game. I'm sure it's going to be on ESPN or one of the main networks. And it'll be an easy game for Frost to hype up his team. Either you love the total or you take Nebraska, in my view, when you handicap this game.
And I tend to agree with you. It's probably a game I'm not going to use. And again, public perception, Ron. They've covered the last 4 Iowa, but how about their 3-0 straight up in ATS in their last 3 and won by 23.3 points per game? Not only are they winning and covering, they're dominating their opponents against a Nebraska team coming off a loss against lowly Illinois. Not only a loss, as a 17-point favorite, they get blown out. So how is the public going to perceive this game? They might think they're getting a steal with Iowa at minus 13.5. That very well may be, but me and you both know it's never that easy.
No, it's so easy to make a case for Iowa. Now make one for Nebraska. You know what I mean? That's the perception, right?
And that's a difficult case to make, other than what we just alluded to.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Sometimes it's numbers. And it just the reality is it's that uncomfortable pick. Again, we're beating the dead horse here. All right.
Yeah.
Minus 5.5 for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish taking on the North Carolina Tar Heels. Look at that total, 67.5. Forecast has Notre Dame winning 34-28, over under 63. I think this is a very dangerous spot here for Notre Dame. Again, the more they keep winning, the bigger that piano gets on their back. It's looking at their record, 8-0 in the year, 6-2 for the Tar Heels, 4-0 at home, 3-1 against the number. Notre Dame having a dream season, right? Coming and both these teams are coming off 2 weeks rest, almost 12 days rest. And normally road favorites on 12 days rest are 16-6 straight up. This is another tough game to handicap when you're looking at both these teams. I know you like North Carolina a bit, you said this week.
Well, I don't know if I like them. I think this, I'm not willing to go out on a limb and say that's a game I'm going to use, Ron.
Okay.
But I will say this. A lot of people think they're getting a steal here with Notre Dame as just a single-digit favorite against North Carolina. Well, North Carolina, remember, Ron, they were a top 25 team early on, okay? And they're 6-2 on the year. It's not like they're a bad team. And this not only are they 6-2, but this is an explosive offense that averages 43.1 points per game. And my quote I like to use when I have an offensive underdog like this is, you're always going to have a puncher's chance, right, Ron? Yep. When a team could score 43.1 points per game, 563.4 yards of total offense per contest, 7.7 yards per play. That's dynamic. Wow. And go one step further, they're 4-0 on their home field, and they covered 3 of those 4. And they're outscoring opponents at home in those 4 games by a whopping 35.7 points per game. So, that's awfully good when you look at North Carolina. You wonder why it opened at just a 3.5-3-point favorite for Notre Dame. That's why.
You know
what, Ron? A lot of money and action has gone the way of Notre Dame early, which it normally does, right, Ron? It's like the Dallas Cowboys. No matter who they're playing, whatever the point spread is, you're always going to have that fair share of action from their loyal fans. But that scares me even more, that amount of money has been laid down on Notre Dame. Overwhelming.
Yeah, that's because they see the Clemson victory, right?
Yeah.
Like that big Clemson cloud just follows them now. Well, it's a rainbow,
Yeah. Yeah,
and the pot
exactly.
of goals at the end, because, hey, we're the team that beat Clemson, and we're going to get the respect now. We're, and we're going to get the public perception. But, you said something about this North Carolina offense, and I looked real quickly. Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of their 8 games, they scored 40 points or more on offense.
Yeah.
In the ACC, right? And that's
Yeah.
that Wake Forest game. I had Wake Forest. It was a nice backdoor cover at the end, but that was a game they were up by 21 points, I think, or 17 points.
Yeah, it was Wake Forest was up by 21 late in the third quarter.
Yeah.
And North Carolina actually came all the way back and was covering until, like you alluded to, Ron, you got that late touchdown to get a backdoor cover. So that's how explosive this team is. Now, if there's an enigma North Carolina has, it's on the defensive side of the ball. They're not very good defensively, especially look at their last 3 games, Ron. In their last 3 games, the Tar Heels have allowed 40.3 points and 478.3 yards per game.
Wow.
So, that's something that Notre Dame is going to be able to expose. I mean, this is a Notre Dame offense that seems like it's getting better as the year progresses. And a lot of that has to do with the improved play of Ian Book, who I'm very impressed with. So This has all the makings of a very entertaining game. And I wouldn't doubt if this is one of those games that goes down to who has the ball last. And if that's the case, you always like the underdog if you feel that way.
Here's the thing. It's now, and I've said this many times on these shows, are people talking about the streak, the winning streak, or national championship, right? You got to keep an eye on the prize. And, like Breezy always says, the next game is the most important game. They're on an 8-game win streak. Since 96, the road teams on an 8-game win streak the last 3 years, 2-8-3 against the number. So from a point spread point of view, Ross, I think North Carolina, another uncomfortable pick. And we know we're at that point of the year now where there's 1 or 2 major upsets that's going to happen each weekend, right?
Yeah.
Like to carry that goose egg, like 5-0, 6-0, 7-0, 8-0. We're getting at that point where, ESPN is going to have those alert things going every weekend now. But there's always one team that's going to get upset in the next 3-4 weeks now, because to be undefeated is a very hard thing to do. And sometimes you go into this game thinking, okay, you know what, it's just North Carolina. They got no defense. We should be able to, route them. Next thing you know, it's like, wow, where did that come from, right?
Right.
So I think point spread in the Raymond report, the chance of winning 86.3% for the Irish, only a 19% chance for North Carolina, which I find is pretty high. The chance of covering, though, favors North Carolina at 58% compared to 42%. And look at this, the Kogo at 27%, meaning a 63% chance this game going under the total. And that's because both these teams are on over streaks. Last 4 have gone over for the Tar Heels and the last 2 for Notre Dame.
Yeah. And it's gone up to 68 for what the opening number was 63. It's actually 68 now, Ron, not 67.5 anymore. So since you look last, it's gone up to 68.
Don't blink.
It opened at 65.5. So anyway, I think it's a justified number based on everything we just discussed. Think about this too, Ron. Notre Dame, if they get upset on Saturday, it's not the end of the world. I mean, because they finished the season with games against Syracuse and Wake Forest, which they're going to be prohibitive favorites in. They win those 2 games. They're still in the ACC title game against Clemson. And if they beat Clemson in the ACC title game, how do you leave them out of the college football 14 playoff?
Yeah.
I mean, North Carolina is 6-2. They had that bad loss at Florida State, 31-28, in a game they had a furious rally at the end, but it fell short. And then they lost at Virginia, 44-41. So this team is very close to being 8-0 as well, right, Ron? So, again, it's not like the degree of urgency and desperation Notre Dame needs to win this game if they have any national title aspirations. No, they still have a pathway, even if they lose.
Yeah, and again, like I said, we're going to get to these points where there'll be one upset, the upset alert each week. It's trying to find that team that's going to get upset, right?
Yes.
All right, Ross. Hey, you know what? For a Thanksgiving Day special today, I guess you can say.
Yeah.
We covered NFL, we covered college football. We're taking tomorrow off for American Thanksgiving, and we'll be back on Friday with NFL Football Friday. Now, what do you got going this weekend? Do you have some picks I know up at ATS Stats?
Yes, I have 3 picks up at ATS Stats on the NFL games on Thanksgiving Day and evening. As I alluded to before, I have 2 totals. One of them a 10-star top play, Baltimore and Pittsburgh. The other total is on the Detroit-Houston game. I got an ATS winner in the Washington-Dallas game. All up there right now at atsstats.com. You can get them individually, the 2 5-star plays for $35 each, the other one for $50, which is my top play. Or Ron, you can get all 3 for just $75, which is $45 off the individual pricing. You can get all 3 of my games in the NFL on Thanksgiving Day. A squeaky clean 3-0 sweep coming up by purchasing at atsstats.com.
That's awesome. And folks, why not? Ross is having a great year. His record proves it. You go to his website, look at his record he does this every year. So if you're looking for a solid handicapper that wins consistently, rbwins.com or atsstats.com, because Ross Benjamin is a guy for sure I endorse. Hey, the guy wins.
Hey, Ron, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention this, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but before we sign off, my NFL picks since the first Monday night of the year, 35-24, which is good for 59%. My NFL totals this year are 8-2, and that's even with that loser on Thursday. So again, I have 2 totals, and my NFL record has been very good this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll have probably 1 play for NFL for Thursday, but I will have 2 plays for college football on Friday. I've already got 2 nice plays ready to input into the system. And folks, you can get that just by visiting our website right here at atsstats.com. Also, if you're interested in the Raymond Report tip sheet or the access to the members area, right now you can use a promo code THANKS25, capital T, THANKS25, and get 25% off. It's a 1-week deal. And why not get 25% off? In fact, if you're a member at the website and you've been there all year, get a year membership, and then why not get 25% off? And hopefully, with NBA, NHL coming right around the corner, you can use that as your resource for a winning formula. All right, Ross. Hey, buddy, have yourself a great happy Thanksgiving. So take it easy on that turkey, and don't forget to water those plants behind you. They look a little dry.
Hey, my wife is in control of that. So
okay. For Ross Benjamin, I'm Ron Raymond. This was the Raymond Report Sports Betting Podcast for Wednesday, Hump Day, Wednesday, November 25th. Folks, again, have a happy Thanksgiving. As always, shop for value, play those percentages. We'll see you back shortly with another Raymond Report.